Hello everyone, welcome to Apti Plus Academy for Civil Services. It's a video on daily news and editorial analysis, which I'll be covering from the Hindu and Indian Express, the important news and editorial that would be relevant for the preparation of civil services examination will be discussed in this session. Let's get started with the news topic list. Today is 30th of May, the first important news, that is India to train women from ASEAN for UN peacekeeping, something important when it comes to the part of representation for the women in the UN peacekeeping force or the mission. Second, India, Singapore to focus on education and skill development. Third, China to send astronaut to moon by 2030. Second last, that is CAG voted as WHO auditor for the second term. We'll see more detail about this. This can be relevant for prelims examination directly. And the last is an editorial from master of the roasters to the master of all judges, which talk about the Chief Justice of India power, its jurisdiction, its jurisprudence. Apart from the news and editorial discussion, at the end of this video, there will be MCQ based questions. These questions will be based on current affairs that will help you for the upcoming prelims examination. So without any further ado, let's get started. And before I begin this session, if you are new to our channel, do not forget to subscribe Apti Plus Academy for Civil Services on YouTube. If you like this video, if you find this video informative and helpful, do press a like button. So starting the session, the first news of the day, that is India to train women for ASEAN for UN peacekeeping mission, something important for General Studies paper 2, that is bilateral regional grouping and agreement involving India and affecting India's interest. So following the defense minister proposal last year, which was actually put in by India's defense minister, where it was called that there should be an initiative which called for women in the UN peacekeeping force as a part of expanding policy where India and ASEAN countries, specifically ASEAN is Association for Southeast Asian Nation, there should be a defense cooperation where the women from India and ASEAN countries should have their presentation, right? और इसी को ध्यान में रखते हुए India is set to conduct 2 initiatives for women personnel for the Southeast Asia later this year. Now, the UN Peacekeepers Day and India, this is again important. The Indian Army is commemorating 75th anniversary for International Day for UN peacekeeping by paying homage to the fallen soldiers at the National War Memorial that took place in Delhi. Now, March 29 is considered and it is actually marked as 75th of the UN Peacekeeping Day and India, right? So this is the time where India started its contribution to the UN peacekeeping, and India is one of the largest troops contributing to the nation. Currently has around 5,900 troops, which is close to 6,000 troops deployed in 12 UN missions. Now, this is a day when 1948, the first UN peacekeeping mission started with UN Truce Supervision Organization, which began its operation first in Palestine. Now, India has conducted close to 275,000 troops for peacekeeping missions, and so far 159 Indian Army soldiers have lost their life globally with their contribution in the UN peacekeeping forces. Now, women participations की अगर बात करें peacekeeping missions में, the United Nations has said that the role of women, and is again something very important, which not only call for women participation, but ultimately it called for women empowerment, and to a larger extent it is giving an impression to the society that women is equal far footing with men. So the peacekeeping missions operations has been more effective. According to the United Nations, around 95,000 peacekeeping forces are there in 2020, and women comprises of 4.8% of the military contingent and 10.9% of the formed police unit. This is again a factually important information that you can use in mains, specifically on the topic of women empowerment. अगर women empowerment की जैसी topic है तो वहाँ पे आप इस तरह के points जरूर note करें. Meanwhile, 34% of the personnel in the peacekeeping missions were women. Now, contribution wise, अगर countries की share को बात करें, this is something, the data is for 31st of March 2021. And this is something like Bangladesh has this much contribution, India is again 5228, and other details are mentioned. India, if you list in the rank, India is 5th in the country, followed by other countries include Bangladesh, Rwanda, Ethiopia, and Nepal. Now, modal exercise is also there. So, according to an official statement, the Minister of Defense said that all 20 peacekeeping forces from countries will be trained accordingly. And there is a tabletop exercise which is there for women officers from ASEAN members. And the UN peacekeeping forces will have a challenges to conduct. And even the sample would all be conducted so that they can finally execute and contribute their services in particular regiment where they're actually allocated. Now, tailor-made courses are also offered for 2 candidates from each of the member states. Now, some other information that you must know about the UN peacekeeping forces, that total 193 members are there working with international partners like African Union, European Union, and the partners for UN peacekeeping include the World Bank, UNDP, and the UN Women. So the total budget is 7.23 billion. And other details, the peacekeeping include across 16 missions, 4 continents. And these are the other details about the logistic operations. So this minute details will even help you to get some additional information about the UN peacekeeping forces operating across the globe. Now, moving ahead to the second news, that is India, Singapore to focus on education and skill development. Something important for General Studies Paper 2, that is the effect of policies and politics of developed and developing countries on India's interest and India's diaspora. So recently, India and Singapore have agreed to create an opportunity for lifelong learning, and not only lifelong learning, apart from lifelong learning, they will build a future-ready workforce, make knowledge and skill development as a key pillar for the strategic partnership between India and Singapore. So why we're discussing this news? Because the education minister, the minister for education, is on a visit to Singapore, three-day visit में है और वहाँ पे कई सारी चीज़ों पे ध्यान दी गई है, and they are actually working out for the best practices that Singapore is having and collaborating on the part of customizing them to meet the Indian need. Now, what are the focus area for this meeting that is actually taking place between India and Singapore? So the education minister discussed about the national education policy, that is NEP. India has been implementing this part very diligently and for across the sectors. तो फोकस की गई है जहाँ पे अर्ली एक्सपोजर ऑफ वोकेशनल एजुकेशन पे ध्यान देने की बात की गई है इस नेशनल एजुकेशन पॉलिसी की प्रोविजंस के थ्रू, इंश्योरिंग मार्केट रेलेवेंस ट्रेनिंग एज वेल एज बिल्डिंग कैपेसिटी फॉर इंस्टीट्यूशनल टू प्रोवाइड टेक्निकल एंड वोकेशनल एजुकेशन. Now, both countries further discuss the work towards integrating the skill qualification framework, जहाँ पे higher education पे ध्यान देने की बात की गई है, even developing short-term and long-term training programs, providing skilling, reskilling, and upskilling opportunities for the member of both India and Singapore. Now, G20 Future for Workshop की अगर बात करें, which was there, India is the current chair for G20, and this chair will be there till November 2023, right? So this is the time will India will be continuing. So building the outcome of G20 future work is again something important, and this was held in Bhubaneswar, where Singapore has also discussed the part where they need to leverage on the part of skill and development, addressing the common challenges and transforming the Indian skill ecosystem. So this is a collaboration that already has been made between India and Singapore. And India and Singapore have also agreed to advance the mutual policies on skilling, creating a new opportunities for life, learning and collaborating together for benefit of the countries and ever emerging economies. Now, other news, that is CAG voted in as WHO auditor for the second term, something important for General Studies Paper 2, that is important international institution, agencies, structure and their mandate. So recently, the Comptroller and Auditor General of India was re-elected as an external auditor of World Health Organization as a 4-year term from 2024 to 2027. Now, what do you have to do? You have to read complete about the CAG. CAG is there in your syllabus, right? You read it from Lakshmikant or any other book you are referring. उसके अलावा ये जो कंटेम्प्रेरी न्यूज़ है इसके साथ आपको सप्लीमेंट करनी पड़ेगी. आपको ये पता होना चाहिए कि CAG जो है दूसरे इंटरनेशनल ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस की भी ऑडिट करती है. So this is important, directly relevant for your prelims examination. Now, currently CAG is already holding the positions in WHO as a 4-year term, which is expiring, and after it will expire, it will continue to hold office till 27. Now, CAG is a member of United Nations Panel for External Auditors, and India is also a member for Governing Board of International Organization of Supreme Audit Institutions and ISO/SAI. Significance की अगर बात करें इस तरह के before you get selected for the part, an organization that is working as an external auditor, what is the significance? The appointment of the CAG is the recognitions as that this organization is at the international standard. An international community is looking for the professionalism, high standard, global audit experience, and even the strong national credentials. So definitely this stand India at the position where it can claim that yes, the audit system which is done by CAG is at the par level. Now this is the second major international audit which was done by CAG, and before that International Labour Organizations की भी की गई है as an external auditor which was actually posted. Now the audit of the international other organization that CAG has already been participating. So beside WHO, CAG is currently the external auditor for Food and Agriculture Organization, International Atomic Energy Agency, and the Organization for Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. So these are the time tenure upon which the CAG will be continuing its office as an external auditor. Now, China to send astronauts to moon by 2030, something important for Gen Studies Paper 3, that is Science and Technology and Developing of a New Technology. So recently, the government of China has actually announced that it is planning to send unmanned missions to the moon by 2030 for a lunar specific explorations amid the deepening space race between the West, specifically for the United States. Now, ये जो announcement की गई, that was announced by the Deputy Director of China Manned Space Agency, which is an apex institution there, and China is preparing to send third of its astronaut to the space stations. Now, this is again a past successful effort that was made by the Chinese, and this is the second rover that will be also there to the Mars. Why I'm discussing this news? Because recently UPSC has been asking question for international relevance in the space agencies, either it's from any countries, there can be a directly question which is relevant for the examination. Now, what is the goal? The China moon mission will include mastering the part of key technologies like Earth Moon manned round trip, उसके अलावा lunar surface short term stay, human robot joint explorations accompanying multiple tasks of the landing, roving, sampling, researching, and even the formation of independent capabilities of the unmanned lunar exploration. तो ये सारी कुछ targets हैं जो कि goal उनको achieve करनी है. The overall goal is to achieve China's first manned landing by 2030, and even the exploration that will take place in the Xinhua New Agency that was reported by. Now, the Chinese manned lunar missions come after as the US has also announced. NASA ने कुछ announcement की है that the second manned mission will be there by 2025. So as a consequential, and even if you can say the progressive effort that was made by China, this is the kind of a retaliation, not exactly retaliation, but this is something where China don't want to lag behind. So they're chasing out with United States or the Western countries, and when US will be doing in 2025, they have planned for 2030. Now, India की अगर बात करें, India की क्या position है? We have a Chandrayaan mission. Definitely, India has made conclusive progress, and strategically it is very important. So, Indian Space Research Organization has announced an ambitious Chandrayaan mission aimed at demonstrating the critical technology to the spacecraft in South Pole. Chandrayaan Mission 3 carries scientific instrument to study thermophysics properties as a lunar heliographic, and even lunar seismicity, lunar surface plasma environment, environmental composition, and the vicinity of the landing sites. Now, Russia's or China की collaborations की अगर बात करें, definitely these two countries are working together in setting up international lunar research stations, and research space station known as like Cosmos as will be there as a part of signing agreement. And China की तरफ से National Space Administration है जिन्होंने develop किया है facilities where surface of the moon and the orbit will be shared between both countries, and they will be sharing the part of the technological development as well. Now, moving to the editorial of the day, from master of the roster to the master of all the judges, something important for general studies paper 2, that is structure, organization, functions of executive and judiciary. So what I'll be discussing under this editorial is about the Indian judiciary and the power of the Chief Justice of India, an extraordinary decision, right to default bail. First among equal का concept देखेंगे, and even the cause and concern, the bottom line, that is the conclusion part. So before I start, at the outset, I would like to give you the background why we're discussing this news. Recently मैंने आपके साथ एक और भी न्यूज़ डिस्कस किया था जहाँ पे सुप्रीम कोर्ट के डिविजनल बेंच ने रितु छबाड़िया वर्सेस यूनियन ऑफ इंडिया में ये कैटेगोरिकली कहा था कि जो अंडर ट्रायल की राइट्स है, बेल की राइट्स है, वो किसी भी तरह से इन्फ्रिंजेंट नहीं होनी चाहिए या उसमें किसी भी तरह की डिले नहीं होनी चाहिए बिकॉज द इन्वेस्टिगेशन इज नॉट कंप्लीटेड. तो इनकम्प्लीट इन्वेस्टिगेशन और प्रोसीडिंग की वजह से किसी इंडिविजुअल को राइट टू बेल का जो फ़ायदा है या फिर जो बेनिफिट्स है वो किसी भी तरह से टैम्पर्ड नहीं होनी चाहिए, वो उनको मिलने चाहिए. एंड आफ्टर दिस डिसीजन देयर वर अ लॉट ऑफ केओस. सुप्रीम कोर्ट में कई बार रिकॉल पिटिशंस भी फाइल की गई गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया की तरफ से. I'll just make you understand what are the important facts. Now, this followed the practice of investigation agencies charge sheeting of the accused and even investigation being unfinished. तो investigations के लिए क्या करते हैं एजेंसीज, खास करके enforcement agencies को लेकर के बात की गई थी. यहाँ पे ED was the agency that was there. So ED ने supplementary चार्जशीट फाइल की ना, पहले वो हाफ चार्जशीट फाइल करते हैं सो दैट द पर्सन डू नॉट गेट बेल बिकॉज देयर इज अ प्रोविजन, अगर आपने 90 डेज में चार्जशीट फाइल नहीं की है देन इन द इंडिविजुअल विल बी लाइबल टू गेट बेल, राइट. सो टू प्रिवेंट द बेल व्हाट दे डिड कि 90 डेज से पहले एक चार्जशीट फाइल की जाती है और आफ्टर दैट सप्लीमेंट्री इज फाइल, राइट. सो दिस इज व्हाट वाज एक्चुअली अवॉइडेड, बट after taking the cognizance, the Supreme Court had said that the right to seek default bail would be terminated upon the completions of the investigation within the statutory time limit, and it has to be done within the time frame which is actually provided by the judicial magistrate. Now, एक extraordinary decision उसके बाद है recall की बात की सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट ने, and even subsequently a surprising turn took place. The Court of the Chief Justice of India has retained the recall applications moved by the government of India. The government of India का ये कहना था कि इस तरह के अर्लियर बेल पिटिशन फाइल करने से जो इन्वेस्टिगेशन प्रोसेस है वो हैम्पर होती है और एजेंसीज को कई बार लंबा टाइम चाहिए होता है टू इन्वेस्टिगेट द मैटर. सो दिस वाज द स्टैंड दैट वाज गिवन बाय द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एंड इट हैज रिक्वेस्टेड द Chief Justice of India, Honorable Supreme Court, to reverse the part of the decision. So the Supreme Court has actually passed an interim order where it has directed all the courts कि आप जब बेल दें तो सिर्फ रितु छबाड़िया के केस को एज अ प्रेसिडेंट ना माने, आप अकॉर्डिंगली सिचुएशन को देखते हुए बेल को बेसिकली यू कैन ग्रांट अ बेल. In a nutshell, the court said that the CGI indirectly state the rule that was given in the Ritu Chhabadiya versus Union of India. And the Chief Justice of India has categorically noted that there should be the when it comes to the bail part, तो जो लोअर कोर्ट है या हाई कोर्ट है उनको सारे एस्पेक्ट्स को ध्यान में रख के ही बेल देनी है. सिर्फ रितु छबाड़िया की जो केस है उसको एज अ प्रेसिडेंट ना माना जाए. Now, right to default bail, definitely these are the provision which is there in the constitution. So even the default bail is applicable, and even as I told you, अगर investigation complete नहीं होती है time से within a stipulated time, which is 60 to 90 days, then they are liable for bail. तो कुछ provisions है section 162 subsections 2 में CRPC में where these are mentioned. Now, the right to default bail has been characterized by the court in a multiple judgment following Article 21, जो कि एक individual की right to life और right to personal liberty की बात करते हैं. Now, first among the equal, specifically now we'll be focusing on the part of the CGI role and its power. So, constitutional scheme के मुताबिक जो judges हैं वह Supreme Court are equal among in terms of part of the judicial power. और CGI की बात करें, एक special administrative power है उनके पास where he is handling the part of matters referred to him and considering to the larger bench. And CGI is known as the master of roster, again something factually important for prelims. And he is regarded as the first among the equals in relations to the compassion of other judges. So compare kare other judges se, he is considered as first among the equals, which means that beside any other judges, CGI, the vote of the power given to CGI is same, that is given comparison to the part of the judges. वहाँ पे voting में equal है, but among other roster and that part, the Chief Justice of India is something which has a stay, which has a take on it. Now, cause of concern, despite administrative use of the master of rosters, many have recorded instance about the abuse in the causes of concern. और कुछ 5 सालों में देखी गई that the 4 senior judges of the Supreme Court has alleged serious infringement and irregularities with regard to the administration and assigning of the cases hearing in the benches of the court. सो कोर्ट्स में खास करके ये देखा गया कि कई बार बेंचेस जो अलाउ की जाती है, बेंचेस की जो फॉर्मेशन होती है, दैट इज नॉट टेकिंग द ड्यू डिलिजेंस इन द पार्ट ऑफ देयर प्रोसेस. Now, the power vested with the CGI is as virtue, being the master of the roster, and that is underending. And impartial, they have learned the limits, but this power means that the smooth administrative is there in the court. तो इसी वजह से CGI को मास्टर ऑफ रोस्टर बताया जाता है, ताकि कहीं भी किसी भी तरह की कॉम्प्लिकेशंस ना हो. ही शुड बी द इंडिविजुअल हु इज टेकिंग विद द बेस्ट पॉसिबल वे इन अ ट्रांसपेरेंट मैनर. Now, it is imperative for the Chief Justice of India to refrain from spending the power, master of roster, practicing the constitutional benches, allocating the cases completely and even computerized left to the hand of the CGI. So a due process is already taken. Transparency is maintained in allocating of the judges and benches, and even a roster which is there. Supreme Court में या फिर High Court में roster की system होती है जहाँ पे judges को accordingly cases allocate किए जाते हैं और उनकी जो promotions and even transfer take place through the roster system. Now, bottom line, the CGI has a power as a master of the roster, and it is meant only for administrative and decision making. The order is effective in enlarging the power of the CGI on the judicial side, creating an unprecedented inter-alia court appellate mechanism. Within the Supreme Court, the total disagreed and established procedure is within the review petitions. The recent Supreme Court order has affected enlarged the power of the CGI and its judicial side. So see, I mean, everything has to be taken into consideration. There is always a unanimity which is there in the judicial system, whether it is collegium, whether it is a part of roster. As definitely CGI is among all supreme, but they take into consideration where unanimity is the core idea behind their functioning. So this is something that has always been the part of the judiciary. Now, moving ahead with the MCQ questions of the day. Before I proceed, just to tell you the answers of yesterday's questions. For first question, the correct option was C. For second question, the correct option was A. Today's MCQ for practice, that is with reference to general network access of international transmission system. Consider the following statement. They supported the re-establishment of extending interstate connectivity to open access. They seeks to do away with the predetermined point-to-point administrative access. So do check out for the correct option. Second question of the day, that is Acclaim Model Residential School, established by the Ministry of Education. They started in the year 1997 to 1998 to provide quality educations to scheduled tribes. So do check out for the correct option. Practicing good number of questions, studying to its depth is something that is required in the civil services examination. So this was all about for the daily news and editorial analysis, followed by the MCQ questions. If you have any other concern, you can reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to assist you. For time being, I'm signing off. Thank you so much for watching this video.